All right, my name is Mike Clauser, and I have the privilege of serving as the chair of Veterans Community at Okta, Veterans Employee Resource Group for military veterans and the community of support that accompanies them. Today, we're joined by Mr. Eugenio Pace, Okta's president for business operations and former president and co-founder of Auth0. Welcome, Eugenio.
Thank you, Mike. It's great to be here.
Okay, Eugenio, we just mentioned you are a senior executive at Okta, but also the founder of Auth0. And what folks might not know about you is that you're also Okta's senior most military veteran. You are a veteran of the Argentinian military. I was wondering if you could share a little bit about your service and just have a conversation about that today.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that happened a long time ago, but I'll tell you the story. And my journey in the military, it's a little bit of serendipity and with some unexpected turns in a good way, actually. So in Argentina at that time, not anymore, but at that time, there was a draft. And so you were drafted, every male in the country was drafted through a lottery, and they were drafted in all the armed forces. My lottery number took me to the army, and that was when I was 18 years old. Now, I was just about to go into college, and so decided to postpone the service, which you could do until you finished your studies. And so, 5 years later, I got a call. They say, "Hey, you postponed. It's time for you to serve." So I show up in my unit, the unit I was assigned to, which was a communications unit, and that started my journey with the army, which was not by choice, really. It was through a lottery. And, I did what every conscripted soldier did at that time, which is clean and cook and bring coffee and sweep and clean again, and all the drills, of course. And I went through boot camp like everybody else. I learned all the basics of how the military worked. But what happened is kind of like a few months later, because I was in a communications unit, there was a project to upgrade all the equipment that the Army used to communicate between all the different units across the country and outside the country as well. And because I had the technical background, I raised my hand and I say, "Hey, I would love to volunteer and work in this project." And so I joined they accepted, immediately. And I joined this project, which essentially was replacing a very old teletype-based network with modern computers and with PCs and modern networks, and it was a big project. And as usual, we were perennially understaffed and under budget, and so it was intense. I still have to clean and cook and sweep and do all of that, but then the rest of the day, as opposed to staying on sentry duty or like doing nothing, just counting hours for the day to end, I spent all the time in this project, which was a big success. And so this is where things become more interesting, because it was a big success. So when my year of service elapsed, they essentially offered me to stay and continue to develop this project, which wasn't done. And now, by choice, I decided to stay, and I stayed for many years in that capacity, which was a great decision.
The way you described it almost sounds lonely. Did you have key relationships that you built there, or can you talk a little bit about the community that you met when you were in the military?
Yeah, so there's like two sides of this. One were the professional soldiers, the officers, the NCOs, all the staff in the army that was there as a career. Then they had the rest of the soldiers that were conscripted with me. And so with that group, I didn't have like a lot of close. We were together. We went through the same, but one of the, as a side reflection, countries with a draft, I think there is something that is lost, when you don't have a draft, which is the ability to see the rest of the country, and like bring the country together. Because I was serving with people that, some of them never used cutlery in their life. And this was the first time that somebody was teaching them to eat with a fork and a knife, if you can believe that. So we have that. I have kids that were barely could read and write. And then you have me and others, when I wasn't alone, that have a college degree and everything in between, like the full spectrum, which is a little bit of the country. And so it was a for me personally, I appreciate that, the just understanding that not everybody is born with the same privileges and opportunities, and I got to appreciate better, everything else. Now, with the people that were part of the project, I developed great relationships. My sergeant major was my immediate superior, and I reported to him while I was a soldier. He's a great person and somebody I learned a lot from, and I stayed in touch with, over years. Still today, I'm still in touch with him. He's retired, of course. And the officer that was in charge of this project, at that time, he was a captain, and I also stayed in touch with him. And every time I go visit my family and my parents in Argentina, we get together and we just, celebrate as old comrades, and we remember all of the things that we worked on together.
I think you bring up two things that I see in the Veterans Employee Resource Group at Okta, which is, first, we have people from all different kinds of backgrounds, identity groups, because military service cross-cuts a lot of those, male,
Yep.
female, old, young,
Yep.
And then and the second is that sense of camaraderie from the service and from doing it together, and that expertise. So I think you definitely saw that. So you said you worked on communications equipment and an IT network. Can you talk a little bit about how maybe that service, that time working on that IT network impacted or helped prepare you with some technical tools for your career later in IT?
Yeah. So I mentioned, I think we were replacing this old teletype network, which is, if you remember, these are like, it looks like a typewriter with this electromechanical old thing with, punched tape, very reliable. It had been working for decades, I guess, there, used throughout the country. Anyway, we were replacing all of that with computers. And this was, essentially PCs with files and like a maybe a specialized email system. So it was email based, but they had like additional components there was a cryptographic component for, confidential information. There was the network. Not all units were, at that time, we are talking about the early 90s. So internet access was not as widespread. So some of the units were really remote and were in places where there was they were kind of like standalone. So the communication with them was based on radio and radio links. And that required like installations of antennas and just like a variety of ways that all this thing was interconnected. And what I did is I did everything, really. I would remember I volunteered, so whatever was at hand, I did. And I set up PCs. I, in some cases, assembled PCs. I installed the software. I installed antennas. I wrote some of the software that we used in addition to the packaged software. I did all the enablement and training for the unit. So we would go, unit by unit, and we will train all the communication staff in those places in how to use the software, how to how we worked, etc. We also did a lot of the support and help desk. So when somebody had a problem, they will call us and they will, describe the problem they had. We ship them replacement. So all of that was part of my. So it was a little bit like running like a mini IT team, from equipment, hardware, procurement of that, keeping a stock for parts and pieces, and then the logistics of getting everything out there, as quickly as possible. So, in some cases we jumped on a Jeep and we were off we went with just fixing things on the ground, so to say. But so fast forward, obviously I learned a lot about the technical tasks and programming and management, all of that, all the things that I described. But I also learned that, you can build the best software in the world, but if you don't teach people how to use it, it's not very effective. I learned that not everybody has the same maybe background and understanding of technology, and so we have to invest in training and in enablement, how important that is. But the other thing is that our this is Argentina, right? So it's not a particular country with a lot of budget for the military, especially at that time. And so, I learned to do things with what we had available. And so sometimes we didn't have all the equipment or all the tooling, and we figured out. And, that's one of the sergeant major I worked for. He was one of the most resourceful people I met in my life. He would just make it work. It didn't matter how. I was surprised of the creativity of how he made things work with in some cases with nothing. So it was really another lesson for me.
Well, I mean, there's a reason they say that NCOs are the backbone of the military, and it's that the expertise, the resourcefulness.
Yeah.
My Navy chief had the pleasure of being an identical twin to the comedian Dave Chappelle. And so he used to chew me out in the mornings. So imagine having Dave Chappelle chew you out. Come here, Ensign. I want to talk to you. That was every day for me.
Yes, I had that too, by the way.
So I wanted to ask you about advice you have. Now, this is advice that you would give to military veterans who are working at Okta. So already here in part of the ERG, or just finding out about our employee resource group. What kind of professional development advice do you have for veterans who've just found themselves at Okta?
Well, I think everybody who's been exposed to military life has some pretty good skills already, which are very, very relevant to what we do here. Like dealing with ambiguity. So you don't have you have to sometimes react to a situation with imperfect information, and you have to act quickly and quickly adapt on the spot. That happens in business all the time. There's new competition, there's incidents, there's all kinds of things that happen, and we need to adapt quickly. I think that's so the ability to make decisions is I think it's an innate ability that we bring here, and we should put it in use. Not surprised that we are rolling out decision-making framework, rapid now in our company, because sometimes I think we for good reasons, but we maybe it's unclear what the objective is, and so we spend time figuring out what we're trying to achieve. So that obviously it's connected also with a very mission oriented mindset, where creating a clear objective and everybody working towards that objective, I think that's another unique trait that we bring. It's being able to focus and like filter out all the noise and focus on the most important things.
Yeah, I think you hit the three things, right? So it's exposure to ambiguous situations and being able to adapt, improvise, and overcome in those. It's figuring out who the decision maker is, which is very clear in the military context, sometimes less so in the corporate. And then also that mission focus, right? So Okta's mission is to make sure that we could use that all technology we can connect safely and use safely. And that's a mission kind of worth working on. So could I ask you now advice, not just for veterans at Okta, but for those who are maybe still service members, thinking about getting out, thinking about separating or retiring, what advice do you have for those still in the military who are interested in a career in tech? So we'll zoom out and say tech first, and then maybe secondly, a career at Okta. Advice, thoughts for them?
Well, I realize that this might be somewhat different depending which country you are, right? So I understand that the military organization in every country is different, and so some of the resources and some of the tools that you have available might not be exactly the same. But hey, my 2 cents is that I would, if you are planning on leaving your Army position or Navy position, Air Force position, etc., and go into a company like ours, don't wait till the end. Just start as soon as possible by just getting acquainted with what the company does, getting, learning. If you find a way of trying to kind of like practice what life in a company like Okta looks like, try to practice that as quickly as possible. So it's not like an abrupt transition. So it could be a very different environment. It's a different environment. In many ways, I would say, as a side note, I found, from people who don't know, it might look like a very challenging place and an intimidating place, but I found my army time to be actually more, in many ways, simpler than life in corporations, where some things are very clear in the army and not that quite clear in other places. But anyway, I think there's plenty of resources for active duty members to start practicing for life after duty. There's I don't know how many certifications we made available.
About 5,000.
We have 5,000 certifications available that you can take. There's also, I'm sure there are resources available, talking maybe in the US Army, US military forces. I am not super familiar with that, but I'm sure there are VA resources or DoD resources that you can tap into to get trained, get enabled, and start practicing for that life.
Yeah, I think you hit the key there, which is to plan it out early, get started early, familiarize yourself with those resources. In the US context, DoD has some, VA has some. It's going to differ from different country to country. Okta has made available 5,000 Okta certifications for the unemployed, including veterans and military spouses. This is just after Octane 2023. So yeah, there are resources out there. What about if you worked in a comms IT environment in your military service? What if someone didn't? What if they were a bosun's mate, in the Navy, or a ground pounder in the Marines? What kind of advice do you have for them in translating their skill set and their experience and for recruiters in a corporate or tech environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, IT is like, there's a lot of already bridges between the work that, I described my job there, the job in IT, it's, more or less the same. So there's a lot of similarities there. I would say I think in our conversation, we had a conversation about somebody saying like, what did you do? I was a sniper. And, if you go in an interview and say, well, okay, what did you do? I'm a sniper. that's probably that's a very specific skill that is going to be difficult to connect with the corporate world. But if you think about what are the skills required to be a really, professional sniper, it's detail orientation, planning, focused, ability to deal with very stressful situations and stay focused and leveled. Those are all fantastic skills in business as well. And so maybe it's kind of like, I would say, it's like learning the language of the civilian world, where it's like the translation between not so much on the specifics of the work, but on the skills that are required to do that work, because those skills are perfectly transferable. And so maybe focus more on that than on what you did. I fixed engines, or I fixed tank tracks. Yeah, well, there's maybe not many civilian vehicles with tracks, but you can say, I'm like planning, organizing, troubleshooting complicated systems. Those are all skill sets that transfer. They're more easily to understand, more easily understandable.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, the truth is the corporate civilian world is just not going to know military language, jargon, acronyms, and what the roles entailed. And I think it's just incumbent upon the applicant to help kind of connect the dots there a little bit for the recruiter, so they understood exactly like what kind of high quality candidates in front of them, instead of sort of an alien from another planet speaking a language that they just don't know.
And a group like ours, like this one, could be a good resource
Absolutely.
too for interested applicants, because first of all, if a company has an employee group like ours, it's probably a good indication that they want to understand that world, right? And so
Absolutely.
we see the value of people with that background, and because we have made already the effort of connecting those dots. So I would also say, ask the question, what is your Vets and Okta equivalent, and ask to talk with some of those members as well, people
Absolutely.
like you.
And it's like being an ally to come alongside and help those vets also kind of come in. So let me ask a question differently, which is, if you were to, if you have these service members, they're high quality human capital, they're getting out of the military, they have their life ahead of them. Why would you pitch them on Okta? Why would they come work for Okta as opposed to another tech company, or maybe a different sector, defense, energy? Why Okta? What can a vet find at Okta?
Well, I would start with our mission, because we have a pretty bold and ambitious mission, which is to free everyone to safely use any technology. And in that statement, there's a couple of like pretty bold claims, which is like everyone, any technology, and safety, security. And so I think in many ways, we are essentially, we're fighting the same threat actors, the same enemies in many cases, in a different perspective. But perhaps the strength of our mission, I would focus my pitch around that.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. We have the right mission. And there's an ability to keep serving outside of uniform, with uniform off, in a corporate capacity.
Yeah, we served in different places, but with this commonality across us, whether it's mission oriented, the values of our company, in transparency, acting with integrity, loving our customers, loving our mission, or loving the citizens that we protected. All of that, it's like there's a common thread. I had a conversation with in one of our events. I had a conversation with somebody that served in the British Army, and Argentina and the UK were at war at one point in time, not that far away. When I served, more like, they were like 7 years, no, more than that, maybe like 10 years before, there was a war between the two countries. A silly war, that's a different conversation, but there was a war anyway. And so we had this conversation, say, oh, were you in the Falklands? And no, that was way before my time. I was too young for that. I was 12 years old, but I still remember. And and there was this moment where we were on different sides, perhaps, of a situation, yet almost instantaneously we connected about what we do here, and service and the dedication, and there was common ground almost instantaneously, which was great to see.
Yeah, for sure. I said it earlier that there's so many different backgrounds that come because of military service. Yeah. We're an American company, but we operate globally. And so we have veterans from around the world. We welcome them all and celebrate them all equally.
He joked and he said, like, don't worry. Britain has been at war with almost every country
including America.
So yes, we fought everybody. Okay, that's all right.
There you go. Well, maybe then just a question about, as we're wrapping up, what about advice you have maybe inside Okta to people who are not veterans, just good old regular Okta employees, Oktanauts, we call them. How can they foster an environment that's inclusive and welcoming to veterans? What advice do you have to that broader employee community?
Well, the first thing I would say is that a lot of the prejudice or any of those like negative perceptions that we have from others comes from a place of lack of understanding, and comes from lack of knowledge and ignorance, if you will. Not willful, but it's ignorance. We don't know. And so every time we don't know, we're humans, we fill in the blanks with stories, and we fill in the blanks with our own narratives. Or perhaps you might have had some experience in your life that tainted your perception of the military or veterans or whatnot. And so the first thing I would say for anybody who doesn't have the background or maybe has that perspective is to get informed and to get connected and, talk to people, educate yourself better into what this group is about and what do we bring to our company. There's a Slack channel, Vetscom, which is open to everybody. It's an open channel. It's not, you don't have to be a veteran to participate in that. We do a lot of joint projects and community outreach projects out also, not just for veterans. There was one that we organized. When was it? Recently? When was it that we did this? We did an activity for homeless shelters. And
well, yeah, we did it on September 11th. We did it over 4th of July. We did it over President's Day. So we partnered with our People of Collective Cultures ERG that have just a lot of different underrepresented communities there.
There you go. So reach out to us, ask questions. If they know, instead of like making up a story by yourself, just ask, get the facts.
For sure. All right, you've been generous with your time. I just want to give you kind of one last opportunity for kind of closing arguments for those who are not maybe working at Okta, but are considering maybe applying for a role or coming and joining the team. Why is Okta a good fit? Closing arguments.
Well, I think we covered quite a bit of this already. Hopefully, in terms of the job, the mission, we talk about the transfer of skills, which you might have a completely different job, but the mindset and the skills, how they apply to what we do here. But above everything, I would say we are a company that wants you here. It's a great place for you to continue to develop your build up from the skills that you have and continue to build your career and continue to build professionally. And we want you here. That's probably the first thing we start with. Come and join us.
Yeah, for sure. If you want to keep serving outside of uniform, keep protecting technology from bad guys, that sense of mission and purpose, and try to bite into something that's bigger than you are and with a bigger mission, I think Okta is a great place for that. And you're going to find hardy comrades who are going to help you be successful here. All right, with that, thank you, Eugenio Pace, founder of Auth0 and president of business operations at Okta. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Great chatting with you.
Our pleasure.